Hello, Facebookers. This is Lisa Sabaniak from lifelikeyoumeanit.com, and I welcome you to our live event today. I'm hoping that I will see lots of different questions that will pop up. I'd be more than ecstatic to be able to answer any questions that you might have. Until questions pop up, I'm just going to kind of truck along here with what I want to talk about, which today is talking about becoming proud of who you are. Becoming proud of yourself sounds like that is a really easy thing to accomplish, but it's actually very hard for some of us, just like the whole term, the expression loving yourself, like if that's just so easy to do. And the reality is that we're very hard on ourselves, whether we have really high expectations of ourselves and we let ourselves down, or whatever it is that kind of holds us back. The reality is becoming proud of yourself is actually something that you have to work towards. It's not something that just comes naturally for everybody. And one of the reasons for that is that we live in a fear-centered kind of learning pattern. And what I mean by that is that being a scientist, I always kind of look back at science for how everything in the world works. And with fear is connected to our thinking center. And when you're exposed to something that is scary, even if it's just for a second, even if it's just for a millisecond, that if somebody asked you about it, you wouldn't even realize that you had even registered that fear, there is a part of your brain called the amygdala, which will activate. It will get you started thinking about the reactions before you even have the reaction. And why does that matter? Well, we do this every single day. We have lots of things that pop up in our day-to-day existence that makes us uncomfortable, right? Whether that is, an actual situation that makes us uncomfortable, or whether it's something where we're trying to go beyond our normal limit. We're trying to extend ourselves. We're trying to do something that's new to us. And it's scary. And so naturally, our brain will start to think about ways to get around that, whether it's even while we're sleeping, or whether it's something that is a little bit more conscious. Okay, so we've got that aspect to us that is a normal, natural aspect. But unfortunately, this normal, natural way that our brain kind of works is stopping us from being able to reach our full potential, for being able to succeed fully. And that becomes a real problem because it makes it a lot easier for negativity to start to creep in. So if we're setting ourselves up for something that we're very excited about and we want to do this, or we want to have this success in whatever it is, and then we've got this little side note of our brain that is automatically trying to fix the problem being the fear that surrounds this new thing, and that ends up automatically leading to you moving away from doing that new thing to save yourself, then you end up with an unrealized expectation, right? Or dejected in some sort of way. And that brings about this whole feeling of negativity. And when you start down that road of, well, I've tried this once and I failed, it's not hard for you to start to apply that to other things in your life, right? Especially the bigger those things are, the more impact they will have to your life, the more apt that you are to not even start it to begin with, both because of this fear-centered learning that we have, but then also because you've already kind of taught yourself, so to speak, that you're going to fail at it because you failed at all these other things before. And I would like to kind of stay along that line for a second. Not that I want to really look at this whole negativity aspect for a long period of time, but it brings about this idea that we would rather master disappointment than to take a chance on success. And that sounds really ridiculous on the front of it. I realize that. But if you think about it for a moment, again, being a scientist, I always look at how science can explain things. And science tells us that there is energy all around us, that everything in this planet is made of energy, including us, including the clothes off our backs, including the chairs that we're seated in now, including the desk that my computer is sitting at, my computer itself, the video camera that is video recording this. Every single thing, live or not live, is vibrating with a certain frequency of energy. And if we're vibrating then at a certain frequency, and there are different frequencies to energy, then you can imagine that a negative kind of feeling is going to vibrate at a different frequency than a positive feeling is going to vibrate at. And we are creatures of habit. And that means that where we feel most comfortable is in a space that we know. And even if that space is amongst failure or amongst negativity, that is what we know. And as ridiculous as it seems, if that is what your past has been, then that is what you are going to want your present to be as well. You're going to fight for it. Anything that is beyond that, that is going to vibrate at a different frequency, is going to be uncomfortable. And that will bring us all the way back to the beginning, where we're going to look at our fear-centered learning again. So you can see how you get yourself in this kind of loop-de-loop. And it's very difficult to break out of that, which is why we would rather master disappointment, because in that mastery, we actually feel some level of success, oddly enough. But the true success obviously comes from breaking past that. And oftentimes when we're looking at ourselves and deciding whether or not we're disappointed in ourselves or we're proud of ourselves, we forget what we've already accomplished. We forget what we've already been able to move past. So in one sense, we are stuck in a lot of ways where we do need to make an actual determined effort to try to move forward. But in another way, you're not the same person that you were a day ago, never mind a year ago, never mind 10 years ago. You have, at some point in your life, at several points in your life, you have taken the chance, you have grown, you have done something different, broken free of your comfort zone. And you need to start taking the steps now to recognize that and to be proud of that. Does it mean that you are always going to be happy? No. Does it mean that you are always going to find success? Well, that depends on how you actually interpret the word success. Because for me, I actually think there is no such thing as failure. That, yep, things maybe don't go your way. God knows that there's been lots of things that I have envisioned to go a certain way, and then they have gone nothing according to my plan. And I say my plan very specifically because it doesn't mean that just because that's how I had envisioned it to happen and it didn't happen that way, doesn't mean that I didn't end up with some sort of success from however things unfolded later on down the road. Right? So we always have opportunities, I think, and especially in our failures. Without failure, we wouldn't be able to actually grow. We wouldn't be able to learn from our experiences or even our mistakes and do anything else with that information. And so on one hand, I feel like there is no such thing as failure, because if you are truly listening, if you are truly wanting to improve yourself at every corner, then you will take every experience that you have and figure out how to find the good in that, how to actually grow as a person from that. And how could that first event ever have been a failure if you are learning and growing from it, if you're becoming a stronger person because of it? So I think that for us to be successful, truly successful, and for us to really be able to be proud of ourselves, we first must need to shift our energy vibration. We need to work through that which is uncomfortable, so that we can work past triggering this sense of fear, and actually start to work with that. So when you have hope in yourself, when you have belief in yourself, then you actually activate a different center in your brain. You activate something called your reward center. And if you're activating your reward center, then the more that you're able to do that and the better that you become at managing that, the more you can override, to some extent, your amygdala, or that more fear learning center that we talked about earlier. And if you can override that, then you can start to actually shift how you are looking at things in the world, how you are experiencing things. You can start taking a so-called failure and see the opportunity that is in it. And I bet that if you took some time after this talk is over, if you took some time to actually think about all the different things that you have been through in your life, whether that is things like relationship breakups or things like not getting the job that you had really wanted and really worked hard to get the job interview for and then didn't succeed at getting the interview. Whether it was a loss of friendships, whether it was a loss of a loved one, somebody actually passing from this life, whatever it is, we all have different experiences that we can find very traumatic, we can find very moving, we can find very negative, and we can find very hard to move forward from. And we can be very hard on ourselves for how we have dealt with those situations. Maybe you're going through a situation right now and it's in the present. It's not something for you to look at for how you dealt with it, but more how you are dealing with it. And on one hand, while it is really helpful and beneficial, I think, to analyze what you would like to do differently in the event that you have similar emotions and similar experiences, I think it's very unhelpful to degrade yourself over and over again for something you have no control over. You can't do anything about it now, except for find a better way when you're experiencing something similar in the future. So how do we end up having hope and belief in ourselves when we are coming from a place that maybe is more negative and more downtrodden on ourselves? So I think the first thing that you need to do is look at those big challenges that you have faced in your life, whatever they might be, and realize first and foremost that you've actually survived those. They weren't just things that you are now left not standing in this world. You have survived it. You are still here. You are still standing. To some extent, you have found a way to move past it. However, I think there's a very big difference between surviving something and thriving, right? Surviving something well. And so one of the things that I think you can do to survive things well is to actually have the courage to look at what you actually did to work through whatever it was that you were working through. Appreciate the facts of that situation. How much did you actually have control over? Are we talking about being disappointed in yourself for not doing something that you really should have done, or something that you really had no control over at all, and you really just need to let it go? You need to appreciate that you did the best with what you had at that time, with your knowledge and your emotional stability and your tools, your support system, whatever it is that you had in place there is possibly different than what you have in place now. And those things considered, you did the best that you could under those circumstances. Most times we have very little control over whether somebody stays or goes in our life, for example, certainly over whether somebody passes into the next realm or doesn't. We're all going to get there in the end. It's something that is inescapable. So appreciate what you actually had control over, and let go of whatever it is that you didn't have control over. What is it that you're holding on to? Is it that you are beating yourself up about over and over again? And is there really a need to do that? Or can we shift how it is that you are looking at that particular scenario and perhaps the role that you played in it? And instead of beating yourself up about, start being proud of the fact that you made it through it. And again, learn from whatever it is that you're unhappy about with that situation. and learn from it. Truly sit down and say, the next time that I have these same types of feelings, this is what I would hope I would do as a response to that. But you've got to set the intention. You can't expect to have a different result, a different outcome, if you don't do anything differently in reaction. And the first step to that is realizing that there's something different to be done, right? So acknowledge it, decide what it is that you would like to do differently, and then put that to task. Actually set that goal. If you are in the situation, this is how you are going to respond. And a great way of being able to do that is through positive intentions, which I speak a lot about because I find them to be very, very helpful. So positive intentions could be anything from, today I will approach the day with happiness and joy, or today I will see the good in all situations, or today I will stay grounded and secure with who I am no matter what I face. Or they can be much more specific, right? So if you have come up with something that you are really struggling with, getting over in your past, and you feel that that is maybe having a very big impact of how you look at yourself today, and you are not proud of that moment, or you're not proud of yourself in consequence to that, then coming up with a positive intention that's very, very specific for that would be very helpful. Okay, and I encourage you that your positive intentions be positive, which I know that sounds a little redundant, but it's very easy to say, if I'm faced with this, I won't do this. And that's actually working in the negative. So what's a much better way to do that is to, have something in there that is a little bit more open-ended and a lot more positive. So I will respond in this way rather than I won't do this. Okay. Looking at things differently really starts with you recognizing that you have survived everything that has ever been put in front of you. You have survived. You are still here. You are still going strong. If you lost somebody that you loved, you have moved on, or you will eventually move on to allow yourself to love again. For example, if you have lost that dream job, then you will go in search of another. You will get another job. Right? If you have had times where you have really been hard on yourself, you have picked yourself up from that. Right? You have allowed yourself to move on from that. So perhaps you need to start making a list of all the things that you have done very, very well, the things that you have actually survived. Right? Start looking at it differently, at all of those things that happened. You survived every one of them. And that allows you to move forward, not just let it go, but to move forward. Okay. One thing that works really well for me is I like to sit each day in the morning. I like to come up with my positive intentions for the day, but I also like to come up with 3 things that I'm grateful for to start my day off, and also 3 goals that I'm setting for myself. And yes, I am realistic with my goals, but I also don't make them mundane and the usual. Okay, my goals are not going to be things like, I will brush my hair today before I go to work, because I do that every day. So my goals are going to be more driven towards whatever it is that possibly might find scary that particular day. Something I'm unsure about, something that I maybe need a little bit more confidence with. Okay. And my level of fear that I'm bringing to the table, and yes, I do always like to try to challenge myself, but within reason. I'm not going to go above and beyond and put myself in a state of fear either. So I've come up with my 3 things that are my goals. I've come up with my 3 things that I'm grateful for, and I've come up with at least 3 positive intentions. See my little things happen in threes here. At the end of the day, I sit back then and I have a little tally. So did I reach my 3 goals? Did I manage to actually work through my positive intentions? And did I seem to continue to be grateful for those 3 things? Are there different things I'm grateful now that my day is complete? When I'm looking at, and this is really key, when I'm looking at my goals and if I reach them, I'm not looking at them in a place of judgment. I am not looking to say, oh, you didn't do that, oh great, way to go. I'm looking at them more for, can I break them down into smaller chunks? Were they too unreasonable of goals for me to tackle? Did other things come up today that took precedence that I really had no control over, or that in the moment they seemed to take more of a precedence than what my original goals were, so I can still be proud of going and accomplishing these other things today, and I'm going to move those goals forward to the next day. Or, like I said, if they perhaps were too hefty of goals, could I break them down into smaller chunks so that I don't overwhelm myself the following day, but that I can tick off my list at the end of the day and makes me feel really good about myself. So those are my top 3 tips for trying to realize all of the things that you have survived, is looking at them differently, seeing the difference between surviving and surviving well, thriving in fact, and being able to actually be proud of the things that you have accomplished, but the things that you have walked through and are still standing after. If this has resonated with you, if you would like to talk more about it, I do offer free 15-minute consultations. I also have lots of free talks out in the community and hold free Facebook Live events on a monthly basis. And I also hold much more in-depth workshops that I run either virtually or at live venues as well. So if you are interested in any of that, please visit my website at www.lifelikeyoumeanit.com. I've put the link in our description for the upcoming events page, but certainly you can click on that and find your way to any section of the website from there. It's been a pleasure sharing with you today. I hope that you found that helpful. I look forward to any comments that you would like to post on this event afterwards. Thank you so much. Have a brilliant day.